Welcome to another Wednesday Yachting Luncheon, looking at our great windows from looking over San Francisco Bay. It's wonderful to be here. A little bit about future speakers. And we want to thank our friends at Sailing Illustrated for helping us stream on Facebook Live to parts far beyond our shores. Let's see, in May, you want to come by on May the 9th. Ron Holland will be here to talk about his new book, All the Oceans, Designing by the Seat of My Pants. On May 2nd, Steve Tashia will be here. He's the chairman of the selection committee for the America's Cup Hall of Fame. He's going to talk all about Higher and Faster, the origins of America's Cup. On April 11, Bob McCullough will be here to talk about his new book, The Capture of U-505, A Legion of Heroes. This is the actual true story of capturing a submarine in World War II. On May 14th, Winslow Homer paints American Destiny. Philip Eliasov will be out here from Connecticut to talk all about the beautiful nautical paintings done by Winslow Homer. And on March the 6th, Dave Holscher will come to talk about swimming from San Francisco to the Farallones and back. How many people have done that? On February 28th, John Stephen Hughes will be the subject, and we will have an exhibition of his work. We'll have a couple $1 million worth of his paintings on exhibit at the Yacht Club for a week, and that's going to be a beautiful talk in February. On the 21st, Kimball Livingston will come by to talk about why we dynamited the junior program. He's the new chairman of the junior program, so Staff Commodore Kim Livingston will be talking about that. And on the 14th, Valentine's Day, our own Tom Eamon will be here to talk on the anniversary of the victory in Valencia of the America's Cup by Oracle's third try, San Francisco's sixth attempt to win the America's Cup. So Tom will talk all about what's next and new for the oldest game in sport. And next week, on February 7, former Federal Reserve Board Governor of the Federal Reserve Board, Bob Heller, will be here to talk about the challenges facing the new chair of the Federal Reserve. So we have lots and lots of interesting speakers coming up. A little bit about our speaker today. He was born in San Francisco, like some of us, and remembers his first boating event at all of being 3 years old and taking a ferry from Richmond to Marin County before there was a Richmond-San Rafael Bridge. And at age 10, he was sailing around in small boats in Tahoe, in little outboard motorboats on family vacations. By his early 20s, he was fishing up in Alaska. And in 74, he graduated with a PI in poli-sci, which he would sort of set aside, and then went and got a JD at Hastings College of the Law. And by 77 had become a naturalist for the Oceanic Society. Many of us remember the pioneering George Cascadin, which founded that society. He then became, at the same year in 77, a volunteer for the Marine Mammal Center. And by 81, he was director at the Marine Mammal Center, and by 83, he had gone on to the EPA, where he began a 30-plus year career trying to clean up toxic waste and pollution elsewhere all over America. In 2008, he founded the Golden Gate Cetacean Research Center with 3 other guys, and it's a 501c3. And if we like the work that we see that Bill is doing and his partners are doing, we can all give to it. It's a 501c3, and so that's an important thing for us to remember. And they founded it to study the occurrence of dolphins and porpoises, and now lately whales, on San Francisco Bay. As a person who sailed here since 57, I can tell you there were no porpoises in those early years, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And he, discovering the same thing, started the center to learn about it. So beginning in 2012 and 13, they began training race marshals for what was about to be the America's Cup on San Francisco Bay, because the boats were so fast and the mammals were so plentiful that he saw the great danger in hitting them with these incredible sharp appendages underwater as boats were foiling at 40 knots outside our windows. And so please welcome our speaker today, Bill Keener. Welcome, Bill.
All right. I've got a lot of information for you today. And so when I was younger, back in the 70s, I would have to go down to Monterey Bay really to get my fill of whales, dolphins, and porpoises, unless they went out all the way out towards the Farallones. But today it's totally different. And so we've got 3 different species. We've got harbor porpoises, we've got bottlenose dolphins, and now humpback whales that are coming inside, underneath the Golden Gate Bridge, into San Francisco Bay. And that is a very big turnabout of conditions over the decades that I've been able to see it, and certainly many of you have seen this as well. So I'm going to talk about all 3, and we're going to start with the big news first, which is the humpback whales. So we've seen humpback whales go along our coast. This is a picture from 2012. Now, this whale never really came into the bay, but they would go by, so we knew they were out there. And then this is like a picture taken from Point Bonita, so we know that they were, in the area. They just weren't coming in the bay. Now, this is what a humpback whale looks like. If you were to sort of take one out of water, it's got these huge flippers, 15 feet long. It's a big animal, 45, 50 feet. And they're very, so, and I can point out here. So we've got one of the interesting things, they live a long time. And this is something that I want to talk about. Their diet is either fish or krill. Now, big blue whales, they eat only krill. These guys can switch back and forth, and that's, I think, one of the reasons we're able to see them in San Francisco Bay. They're named for the hump on their back. They've got a humpback that their dorsal fin sits on. And so a pretty massive animal with big baleen plates in the mouth that strain the water and fish or krill from the water. So we've had a history of humpback whales in the bay before. That's because they were harpooned right outside the Golden Gate in the Gulf of the Farallones and dragged by catcher boats through the bay into Richmond. The last whaling station in the United States was in Richmond, California. Not a lot of people know that, but it lasted until 1971 when the Marine Mammal Protection Act came in and closed the last whaling station in America. Now, what would they do with a humpback whale by then? They would turn it into pet food. So that's what was going on for these humpbacks a long time ago. And then the hunting stopped by 71. Now, there have been some other whales that have come in the bay, and maybe you remember the famous Humphrey the humpback. So Humphrey was a wrong-way whale and came into the bay twice. Once all the way to Rio Vista, he got lost, and then he was lost again 5 years later. And look at this picture here. This is Candlestick Park, and I'm standing in this crowd of people up here trying to figure out how we're going to get Humphrey rescued from being stuck on the mud shoal. And he eventually was, and he got out fine. And then in 2007, there was Delta and Dawn. And that was in the papers also, where a mother-calf humpback whale went all the way up to the Sacramento, the turning basin up there. They were lost, and it took them about 3 weeks before they could made their way out back through the Golden Gate and into the ocean. So we had only a history of either whales being captured and pulled into the bay or lost whales. And then everything changed in 2016, so last summer before last. And when we saw tons of whales coming into San Francisco Bay, and this is the San Francisco Chronicle calling it a whale-a-palooza. I'm not sure what that is, but I guess that's what we were having. And then we started. Now here's one of Leslie Richter, who's in the audience. I was really appreciative of having her picture here. Then all kinds of sailors were able to, get up close to these guys in San Francisco Bay. And here's a photo I took. You might recognize this sailboat. Right, that's the 03 boat. And this is a picture from this summer, just right off the San Francisco waterfront of a humpback whale and the interested gulls above it. And then this is what I was doing. I was actually doing porpoise research on the Golden Gate Bridge when humpback whales started coming underneath me. I was stunned to see these things. They're just massive, and you're 200 feet up, but they still are very, very large to see these animals. And it's not just one, but two, and then three would be underneath you. So multiple humpback whales started coming in 2016 into the bay. And sometimes it's really beautiful. You get this rainbow effect sometimes from the blow, from the breath that comes up. And here's another, and this is my favorite actual humpback whale photo from Leslie Richter. She was able to get this. I think you were, Leslie, taking this when you were photographing some kind of a race. Isn't that correct? You were out there, and you were coming. So this is just outside the South Tower of the Golden Gate Bridge, but a fantastic picture. Okay, so we started asking questions. We'd already been looking at dolphins and porpoises, but now these humpbacks. So how many humpbacks? What attracts them to the bay? Are they affecting the bay? Why now? Where are they coming from? Are there any conservation problems? Are there any risks to them? And so we want to answer all these questions. So we divided the bay for count purposes into an eastern and western section, the western part out to Point Bonita, and then the eastern side from the bridge in. And then, of course, we did see whales, a few other little spots, like these little triangles here. There have been humpback whales all the way down to AT&T Park this summer. And so in 2014, we counted exactly 0 humpback whales in the bay. In 2015, we counted a few, maybe 2 or 3 sort of came out to the west of the bay, didn't cross under the bridge. But then in 2016, that's when things changed, and we were getting big numbers, including 15 inside the bay between Alcatraz and the Golden Gate Bridge at one time, on one day. That was mid-July in 2016. So they were here from April to August. And then in 2017, it got even more intense, where I had to add an extra month because they were here through September. But it started in mid-April, big numbers in June and July and into August. And there's actually a gap here in the middle between late June, early July. I believe that gap is not a real one. There was whales there. We couldn't see them. That was fog. But down later in the year, there is a gap, and there we were looking, it was clear weather, and there were no whales for a few days, and then some came back. So this is maybe a new normal for us to see humpback whales coming into the bay. And of these many whales that came in, 0 have been lost. Really different than the Humphrey situation. Here's the 2 years compared. You can just see a little bit how much more consistent and constant the whales were in 2017, this last summer. And what's attracting the whales? So if you take a look, and blow this up. So these little guys are anchovies, and that's what it's all about. They're here for the food. That's what attracts pretty much any animal. If you feed them, they will come. And so these are whales cooperatively feeding in the bay. There's 3 of them that were lunge feeding right underneath the Golden Gate Bridge. I'm standing on the Golden Gate Bridge taking this photograph. And some things that are kind of odd. This looks like an alien spacecraft sort of landing on the water, but really it's the throat pleats that expand from a humpback whale that is upside down in the water, and that's the pink between the throat pleats. And this is the whale where you can see the whole body of it as it was feeding upside down. And we had a group that I've been collaborating with for many, many years come, and I said, look, there's a lot of whales in the bay. We really want to make sure what they're doing because sometimes we see them feeding at the surface, but other times they're feeding at depth, or we think they are, and we want to know what they're doing. So we had a group come down from Washington State, and they've got the permit to tag whales. I've got a permit to go out and observe them and get close to them in boats, but not to actually tag them. So these guys have a permit to do that. So they came down for the first time ever, tagged whales in the bay. And tagging just means putting a little bunch of instruments so that you can see what they're doing underwater. So this is a little video. Let's see if we can get this rolling here. Yeah, this is how you tag a whale. Here's this video. And so he's got a carbon fiber pole. He has suction cups on a little tag that sticks to the animal for just a few hours. It doesn't go into their skin. It's just suction cups on it. And I was standing on the Golden Gate Bridge and took this photo of the same whale going under the bridge. And so here's the little suction cups on this instrument package, which gives you time and depth, temperature, and its position. So what did we learn from this? Well, they tagged 3 whales that day. 1 tag didn't stay on, a whale, and this is the whale I saw going under the Golden Gate Bridge. It was tagged here off Cavallo Point, went under the bridge, and then went out. And then this whale, take a look in red, stayed in the same area for more than 2 hours. So that's what we wanted to look at. Here is the dive data, the tag information. Stayed on for 2.5 hours. It dived 37 times. And it was pretty much going to around 100 foot. And that's what the depth the fish finder showed was where the anchovies were. And that's what we suspected. They're hammering on the anchovies, just trying to get as much food as they can. And here was a cartoonist in the Marin IJ had noticed the whales coming in and done a cartoon. And this is what it looks like when the anchovies are trying to escape from the... I took this picture down in Pacifica. Thousands of them trying to get out of the way. And then the birds are getting a little extra benefit, pulling anchovies up. Now, why are they here now? Well, one reason is there's a lot more of them. When I started studying whales in the 70s, there was probably 3,000 or 4,000, 2,000 whales in the whole North Pacific, humpback whales. Now there's 21,000 or more. So you stop hunting them, that's what's going to happen. Their numbers have rebounded tremendously. And they're looking for more places where they can find food, and this is one of them for sure, San Francisco Bay. And where are they coming from? Well, we know from studies in the past that the big numbers in Hawaii are not the ones we're seeing in the bay. The ones that winter in Hawaii tend to go to Alaska, where we're getting ones from Central America or mostly from Mexico, like off Acapulco or maybe Baja, and they come to California and Oregon, and they're feeding along our coasts, and now, of course, feeding in the bay. So we started looking and photographing individual whales to see if we could track them, and we can. So here's a whale that's been in the bay 22 different days this summer, and we can recognize it by these little interesting sort of white paint marks on its dorsal fin. This is just from scars from barnacles and stuff. But the main way you track humpback whales is using their fluke prints, which are unique identifying marks, black and white underneath the tail. So here's a picture in the bay with Crissy Field and Doyle Drive in the background. And this was taken in Monterey Bay, so it's the same exact animal. And so you can track animals over years. So I've just literally in the last couple of weeks finished putting together the first ever San Francisco Bay photo ID catalog to try to track all the whales that have used San Francisco Bay, and I've got 45 of them. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So we've got dark underneath their tails to almost pure white, and everything in between. So here's for an example. I took this picture from the Golden Gate Bridge at top. In the middle one was taken in Monterey Bay. It's the same identical animal. And then this one, it's a little blurrier, was taken in Mexico. So sure enough, we've been able to track this individual. It was in February off Acapulco. 2 months later, in May of this year, Monterey. 2 months later, in San Francisco Bay. So we're able to really, hopefully, through more photographs, really be able to follow these animals around and see what they're doing. Now, these animals are still on the endangered species list for our area, not for Hawaii. There's so many. There's 10,000 in Hawaii now that are coming in the winter. The government removed them from the endangered species list last year, but kept the Mexico ones on. Why? Even though there's 6,000, 7,000 of them, it's because as they transit north, as they migrate, they come into contact with fishing vessels, and in particular, fishing nets and fishing gear and crab pots and crab pot lines. And so they're still getting entangled, and they're having problems with their population. Whereas the Hawaiian whales, they'll move across an empty reaches of ocean, stretches of ocean, and they're not having those kinds of problems. And right here, this is the thing we're worried about, is what's going to happen with these whales are coming into an extremely narrow area, 1 mile wide under the Golden Gate Bridge, and there's no room for the ships to maneuver around them. So the whales are there day and night. The ships cannot see them at night. So one of the things we want to do is set up a study to try to figure out exactly how close these guys are getting to ships in the Golden Gate, since it's such a new phenomenon. And this is what happens sometimes, is here's a whale missing part of its fluke from a ship propeller. And then what I've noticed is that people just don't know how to act around whales here because it's pretty new for them. So here's a power boater just literally running right over a whale. Didn't even see it. Wasn't, this was on the news. It was unfortunate. And there's also kite boarders just getting way too close. So one of the things we're trying to do is talk about a need for a public education campaign, because this is a sign that is used up in British Columbia, and you can see that it's really meant to safeguard boaters as much as it is the whales, because these guys, when they're feeding, they'll be coming up and lunging up at food, and if they don't know you're there, it can absolutely wreck a boat. So it can be dangerous for both parties. So we want things to be safe. So one of the things we're going to try to work on is bringing in the other communities that use the ocean, like the surf, windsurfers and the kiteboarders, and talk to them about whale safety, safety around the whales. Let's talk about bottlenose dolphins too, because this was something we were studying before the whales showed up, and they're a very different animal. They live along the California coast year-round, so they're not really migratory. One of the interesting things about them is that they live about 40 or 50 years. So again, when you've got an animal that lives that long, you can track them over decades sometimes, and I'll show you exactly how we do that. So this is the official map of where the California coastal bottlenose dolphins, and they live just within a few hundred yards of the coast. They're not deep ocean animals, this population. There's only 500 or 600 of them. So remember, there was 7,000 humpback whales from the population in Mexico that use our waters, but there's only 500 or 600 dolphins that are along our entire California coast. And interestingly enough, before 1982, there were no dolphins in Northern California. So do you remember what happened in 1982 into 83? Huge El Nino. That was a big El Nino year, massive one. And the warm water brought the dolphins north from Los Angeles and San Diego, and they went all the way up to Monterey Bay, and they stayed there. When the water cooled, they didn't need to go back. They learned how to navigate. They learned how to find food in Monterey Bay, so they stayed there. And then by 2001, they were starting to come up towards San Francisco Bay. They just kept creeping north from Monterey Bay. And then where they're going next, well, we'll find out. So this is the sort of new pictures that we hadn't seen before of this dorsal fin shape of these bottlenose dolphins coming into San Francisco Bay and under the Golden Gate Bridge. Here's some photos I've taken. And I want you to just sort of notice the dorsal fin shape is different than a harbor porpoise, which is squat and triangular, and we'll talk about those guys next. So here's some of the photos we've been taking just around the area, just from Fort Point. And they get pretty acrobatic along Ocean Beach. The surfers are surfing with them, and these guys will leap out of the water. It's not uncommon to see them do that. They seem to enjoy it, and they surf in the waves. Now, for us to identify them, what we do is use their dorsal fins. We don't look under the flukes. We don't see that very often. But what we do is we look at these individual nicks and notches in a dorsal fin. So I took this picture at Ocean Beach and then blew it up into the computer, and then I recognized that individual animal. It was named Gumpy by somebody in Monterey Bay. We didn't name this animal. The Monterey Bay folks tend to see these guys moving north before we do and tend to give them names as well as a catalog number. But we've got a catalog now of 92 adults just using the San Francisco Bay area, and which is amazing because that's almost a fifth of all the bottlenose dolphins, coastal dolphins in California. And so we're able to track them. Now here's Bliss, for instance, on the right here. She was first seen in 82 in San Diego. So we're able to track her across a big chunk of her lifetime. Now here's another one, Smooch. Smooch is at least 34 or 5 years old, and it's been seen since 84 down in San Diego area. And so this is her life story, because we are working with all the researchers up and down the California coast. So she was started off in San Diego in 84 and then moved up into Santa Barbara and then Monterey Bay by the 90s. But then she came all the way back down to Ensenada in 2000 in Mexico. Then she bounces back up into Santa Monica Bay to L.A., and the next time she's seen, it's San Francisco in 2012 and 13, where I photographed her, including one right at Baker Beach here. So this is how we're able to follow individual animals, by collaborating and working with scientists all up and down the state. We've got a lot of photos from our area. The purple on these dots are the photo IDs we have, the actual good photos. But other people have reported, without getting photos, some of the whales, some of the bottlenose dolphins, including off the airport down in the bay. So we really need to redraw the map, and that's what our research is focused on, to let people know dolphins are here. And the most amazing thing happened this last fall, where one of our animals, Miss, an old female that's been around for a long time, first seen in Orange County in 1985, but she's been living up an area for at least 6 or 7 years. She was seen in Tacoma, in Puget Sound, this fall. That absolutely stunned us, because I thought in my lifetime I might see these animals get maybe to the Oregon border, as there's climate change, the water might be warming, they like warmer water. But she just blew past everything. Nobody even saw her in Oregon. No one reported her. And then she shows up, and she's been seen now twice in Tacoma in the last few months. So that's an amazing story just on her own. So we're kind of stunned. And what are they doing? I mean, in Southern California, they're not getting salmon, but they're getting Chinook salmon here and further north. So they've certainly got, they can eat pretty much any size fish. So they're able to get food for sure. And then the other really interesting thing is that we're seeing babies born here. Now, look carefully at this photo. See these vertical pale lines? It's on this one, and it's on this calf down here. Well, these are called fetal folds. When the babies are inside the mother in utero, they're all kind of accordioned up, and when they come out, when they're born, they have stretch marks for a couple of months that lasts, and then you can tell they're neonates. So we're getting, this is right under the Golden Gate Bridge and right around here, Fort Point. So that we're getting them to settle in, and their population is residing here, and they're having babies here, which is great to see. They also interact, unfortunately, with the harbor porpoises, and we've had a number of cases where the bottlenose dolphins will attack and even kill the smaller harbor porpoises. Now, we've been able to, because we can identify the individuals that are doing this, we know they're all young males. They seem to get a lot of testosterone. They don't have access to females. They don't have a job, I guess. And they end up running around, and sometimes when they run into a smaller animal like this on the left, which is a harbor porpoise, they'll take it out on them and they'll beat them up. And so we're working with the Marine Mammal Center on sort of trying to track individual animals doing this and what they're doing. Now, even though you know there's some of these animals are dying, the harbor porpoises are dying. Maybe you get a dozen a year or something like that. There's a massive population of harbor porpoises. There's 10,000 along our coast, so it's not having any effect on their population, at least so far. Now, here's, I think, the most interesting thing for our area. We now have resident bottlenose dolphins in the bay, and they seem to have separated off from their main cousins and brothers and sisters out on the coast, and they're living off Alameda. And they've been doing so since it was July 4th, 2016 was the first time I was alerted by a canoe club in Alameda, and they said, well, we're seeing this young bottlenose dolphin every day. So I went out and photographed it, and sure enough, in the bay has been this one dolphin, and now it's been joined by a second one, which I think is its mother, actually. And so this is a picture I took this last September. I mean, we've got urban bottlenose dolphins now in San Francisco Bay, and I'm just trying to get people not to, provision or feed them or something. They're interested in people because they're very social animals, very big brains, very intelligent, and they are actually coming up to canoes and small boats, and they're interested to see what's going on because they're social, and they're not getting their normal social interaction from their normal groups that are out along the coast. So we'll have to see how this develops over time. This is the area. There's a little map with the area where we've seen them just off Alameda, but they range down a little farther into the bay, but they're always in the South Bay. They never seem to make it as far north as the bridge, the Bay Bridge. But this is Ark on the left, a little bigger. And we've been able to track her. We know her dorsal fin profile, her silhouette. She's been seen in Monterey Bay about 10 years ago, and then she has been here in the Bay Area, mostly on the coast for the last few years, and now only in San Francisco Bay, off San Francisco. So pretty interesting, Ark and Kaimi. And we really rely, because we can't cover the three other marine biologists and I that are working in my organization, Golden Gate Cetacean Research, we can't cover all the vast area to look for dolphins. So we rely on members of the public to send us photographs of dorsal fins of dolphins as they're standing on a beach. Now, it's hard to get with an iPhone or something, but if you got a decent camera, you can get a pretty good picture of this. And so lastly, let's turn to harbor porpoises, which has got us started on the whole research in the bay on these really fascinating animals. So harbor porpoises are pretty small. They're about my size, I guess, and they weigh about 150 pounds. But interesting, look at their lifespan, 10 or 11 years. So they're really short-lived. They live life in the fast lane. They sort of grow up fast and die young. And the males are actually smaller than females, which I can get into why that might be a little later. It has to do with their mating strategies. People ask me, what's the difference between a porpoise and a dolphin anyway? Well, back in the olden days, in the 60s and 70s, there was none. Scientists would just call one a dolphin or porpoise. It didn't matter. But now we've separated them. And the porpoises are just a half a dozen species of cold water, near-shore animals around the world. And then the dolphins are the bigger, temperate, more warm water animals. And really the word just porpoise came from the Latin porcus piscis, meaning pigfish. And the dolphin is Greek. So there's a difference between a Greek and a Latin root. So their range is all over the cool water in the North Atlantic and North Pacific. But we've got a really healthy population here. Nobody's hunts them or anything, so they have not had that problem. We've got 10,000 just between the Point Arena area down to about Pigeon Point, and there's many thousands north of that. So we've got a really healthy population here. And the thing is, when I was looking at the bay, which started in the 70s, there were none here. And so what changed was in about 2008, we saw them come back into the bay. There was a cleaner bay environment. It took years and years to clean the bay. When I was young, I remember being in the 50s, driving across the Bay Bridge, and you could smell the sewage from just running into the bay unchecked back in those old days. So a lot of work has been done over the years to clean up the bay, and it's really paid off because we've got all these amazing animals here. And there's also been some things going on in the ocean that has helped to bring some a better environment that let some the porpoises come back, including for a while there we had some cooler water, and they like cooler water. They're not like the dolphins that like warm water. So here's just some photos so you can see their dorsal fins a little different. It's that little squat triangular thing. And you guys have probably all seen them because they're here every single day. The dolphins come in and out. Humpbacks are here only during the spring, summer, into fall. These guys are here 365 days a year. And here's one that happened to pop out while I was in a boat going by in the bay. And so you can see its little smile there. Now, why were the animals, why did they disappear from the bay? I said they've been gone from the bay, so what happened to them? Well, we know that there's been a lot of changes to the bay over the years, but one of the things that porpoises, which are very acoustic animals, they use their keen hearing really to navigate and move around in their environment. And when you start doing things like building the Golden Gate Bridge, which took blasting, at depth, underneath in the rocks and stuff, that kind of concussion would drive them away. They still didn't leave entirely because we know from a professor's notes from UC Berkeley that he would go out fishing and he would write down every time he'd see harbor porpoises, which was most days he would fish from Richmond. And one day he even caught one, and this animal is in the Museum of Vertebrate Zoology at Berkeley, still there. But this is from 1939, so we know by 39 they were still there, and that was a couple years after the Golden Gate Bridge was opened. But then World War II was, we think, what was the end of harbor porpoises in the bay. So a submarine net was put up across the bay for miles, and it was built over at the Romberg Tiburon Center, which is the Marine Lab, is a 4 by 4 foot net mesh. And then on top of it, because that would stop a submarine from coming in, but they could fire torpedoes through the submarine. So they also had these interlocking rings, which is a torpedo net laid on top of the submarine net. And this was stretched from Sausalito all the way across to where? Right here. It's exactly right here where the St. Francis Yacht Club is the end of this net, which is right over here. And then 2 Navy boats were stationed here, and that's the only way any boat could get in or out of this netting. And it was a big, difficult era for the fishermen. They didn't like it, but it was put in actually 6 months before Pearl Harbor. So it was there for a full 4 years. And whales, from newspaper accounts, whales were tangled in this, and there's no way that porpoises could get in and out of the bay. So we think that's pretty much the end of the normal harbor porpoise population in San Francisco Bay. It was 1941. In 2008, when they came back, we immediately started a study. We realized that we could get photos of them from the Golden Gate Bridge, which kind of surprised us, but it worked. And if you got a good enough camera, here's pictures, although I've taken on boats as well. So here's a picture of one with a scar on its body. And that scar matches one of an animal I took 5 years later. And look, she's got a little calf with her, so we know this is a female. So this surprised us. We could not really use the dorsal fin like you can with a dolphin. It's not big enough to get all the nicks and notches. This one happens to have 1 notch. Most of them have 0. But we could use body scars to start telling them apart. And we're the first people in the world to be able to do it because no one has an incredible platform like the Golden Gate Bridge to work with. So we're seeing a number of animals with these really interesting scars on it. We don't know what's making this. We call them angled scars because they've got this sort of like angle here. And we assume it's fishing gear they're getting involved in or scraping against, but we're not sure. So anybody has any ideas, we're still working on this one. Young male dolphins are doing it right. Could be. And we're seeing some really interesting ones. Here's one that was around for a couple years we called Mini Moby. It's a pure white animal. And here's a normal one next to it. And you can see it would just shine under the water. And sailors would send me photos of this thing, too, and just go, what was that thing? And, well, it's not a beluga whale from Alaska. This is, we had Mini Moby here for a couple of years. And then we've got one interesting animal we've seen over several years, 12 sightings, last in November, and she's got a twisted spine, so scoliosis. And the interesting thing is that I saw a male trying to mate with her once. I thought, oh, what's he doesn't know what he's doing. But it turns out she has a calf the next year, and it's a normal calf, and these are tough animals. I mean, she can't swim straight. I mean, she has a wake that's completely different than another porpoise because she's twisted, but she's out there. She's been out there for years, and she's making a living and feeding and seemingly doing all right. No, the calf was normal. So here's something that's happened recently. I had a young man, a teenager, sent me this photo from the bridge with a big shark bite mark out of this animal. And then I had taken one actually just a few weeks earlier with a shark bite mark out of the side. And the only shark bite we'd seen was years earlier. You can see this. It's hard to see, but there's an actual teeth marks in the side of this porpoise. But obviously the shark did not clamp down and actually take flesh out. But in these 2 cases, they did. And yet these animals were still swimming around basically normally. So I'm again, always amazed at the toughness of these these animals. But we'll see what's going on with these sharks, because we know there's great whites here. I've certainly seen thresher sharks and other sharks underneath the Golden Gate Bridge when I'm out there working. So if you were to take the water out from underneath the Golden Gate, this is what it would look like. And I don't know if you guys know the name of it, but it's called the Cavallo Spire. But it's out right off Cavallo Point, sort of in the center of the channel. And that's where all the eddies and boils start when you have a flood tide coming in. The water rushes in from the ocean, hits that spire, and it goes straight upwards, and that's where you get all that really interesting interaction with the water and eddies and boils, and that's where porpoises like to feed. Now, that spire is 70 feet below the surface, so it's not a hazard to navigation, but it's of interest to porpoises, and they really like to hang out there during the flood tide. So this is what we're seeing. We're seeing foraging for the first time. No one has ever been able to photograph harbor porpoises feeding before until we started doing this work on the bridge and showing them chasing fish. Here's an American shad in the mouth of this porpoise. And then here's a little video clip. Let me see if I can get this thing going here. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Here we go. See if I can get this. Hang on. Here we go. Now look, there's a little fish it's chasing in there. It just flashed a little anchovy. But look how active they are. And this is something you can't see from the boats. You don't, even though they're only a foot or so below the surface, it's just really hard to see that from a boat because you've got the glare on the water. But that's how active and agile they are under the water. So their social life was also something that had been really absolutely unknown until we started looking at them here from the Golden Gate Bridge. And this picture was really what started it out. I took this in 2010, and we never get to see harbor porpoises leaping into the air like a bottlenose dolphin, but this one was, and I thought, oh, great. So I blew it up into my camera, take a closer look, and well, that is an 18-inch penis that's out there, and we go, what is happening with this thing? We had no idea. So this is part of their sex life. And so it turns out this was known ahead of time, that they've got, and I love the title of this scientific paper, mega testes. So they get very large testes during the summer, during the breeding season, and then they shrink, they regress back to a very small, size of a walnut, to compare to the size of almost a football during the summer. So what are you doing with all that, those testes? What you're doing is you're trying to mate as often as possible, as many females as possible, to try to have as many babies as possible. And that's what's going on. So over the years, we've now photographed this 144 times, and it's the male rushes at the female, and usually 99% of the time misses. The female makes sure he misses just by slightly moving out of the way, and he flies past. Now, imagine your testes during the summer are at one point larger than your brain. And so you've only got the one thing on your mind. And so this is what happens. And so the males rush at her and then again fly into the air. So when you see a leaping harbor porpoise, we've seen it many times now, and we've only seen it involved with their sex life. So that's an amazing thing that we're just writing a paper on this, because we showed this to folks in Europe and stuff who study harbor porpoises that have never seen this. They spend thousands of hours trying to look at these animals, have never seen this. So here's a little video to show you. See if we can get this thing going. Oh, what happened there? There we go. Let's see. Yeah, it's a little porpoise porn. Oh, I'm not quite sure what's happening there. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I'm going to try. I did it before. I don't know why it wants to go. Oh, I don't know why it wants to go to your. Oh, it's probably because. There it is. It's just because my. All right, take a look. All right, that's how fast their sex life is. Now I'm going to slow it down to 1/3 speed. That was unsuccessful. But look, he flipped the female around. So she was, I mean, they hit them hard. And so it's pretty rude because she was feeding too, so he kind of interrupted her. But the males, remember I said, are smaller than females? Well, that's because they need to be maneuverable. And they're not about fighting each other males. Bottlenose dolphins, they're big. They fight males. They'll try to, bump each other and bite each other and bang each other and knock each other away. But these guys never interfere with other males. They're just all about being wily and waiting for the right moment to approach and ambush a female. So this is, again, something just unknown in the animal world. And why are we lucky enough to be able to see it? Well, we call it the funnel of love. So it's not just San Francisco. It's the fact that the gate is actually a very narrow area. You've got animals that are out in the ocean that are separated from each other. They're distributed widely and sort of like with not high density, low density, and then they're low density in the bay. But right under the bridge, they all meet and collect. It's like you're in a rural area and all of a sudden you're coming to a barn dance. Well, that's where all the action is going to be for sure. And the action is right under the bridge. Somebody in 1930s thought ahead to build a bridge so we can look down on this stuff, and we're extremely lucky. And so I really think that's why no one else in the world has seen this, and we can see it on many days when you go out. And the interesting thing is we're seeing them do it all year long. We thought they would just do it in the summer because that's when they've got these giant testes. But no, I think it's a very high precision, high energy act, and the males have to practice and practice and practice, particularly the young ones. And that's why 99% of them, the female's not in estrus more than about a month during the summer, so she's not interested in mating, most of the year. So the whole point of it is to have a calf, and there are calves being born here, and we've seen really, really small ones with fetal folds under the bridge, and their gestation period is about 10 and a half months, and they're born in June into July. And then we're not sure yet whether the females are giving birth every year, like they do on the East Coast, they know, or every other year. I think it's a mix. Some females find enough food and they're fit enough to be able to have a calf every year. And it's really important because remember, they only live till they're 10 or 11. They're sexually mature at 4, so you only got 6 or 7 years in which you can try to have a calf. And so it's really important for them. So that is my talk, which I'm glad you guys saw, because you guys are the ones that are out with eyes on the water, and I really want to, reach out to folks like you and be able to talk about what we're seeing here. It's pretty fascinating. So.
If you're just joining us, this is the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon on January 31st, and our speaker today is Bill Keener. He's a marine biologist with Golden Gate Cetacean Research. And Bill, I've got a few questions, and then we'll have questions from the audience.
Great.
How many volunteers support your network up and down the coast?
Well, right now we've got about 25 to 30 people that are sending us photos of either the humpback whales, which there's maybe a half a dozen of those guys, and another 20 people are just looking at dolphins up and down the coast, and like Marin to San Mateo and San Francisco.
How many days a year are you up on the Golden Gate Bridge taking pictures of whales?
A lot. I go out a lot. I go out year-round, and I'm out, try to get out a couple times a week at least. So that's like 100 times a year. I'm probably out on the Golden Gate Bridge. And then I've got my research partners. They'll be on different days, so we try to be out there a lot, see what's going on.
And so we saw pictures, but give us a sense of the dimensions. The whales are how long, how wide?
Yeah,
how deep?
So these humpback whales, I mean, they're big animals. They're 50 feet long and 50 tons, 45 to 50 tons. So they're pretty, massive animals, and that's why I was talking about boating safety and stuff, because ramming into a 50-ton animal. It's not a good thing for either of them. And then the dolphins, they're actually pretty sizable, just in terms of a human size, because they're like can be 10 feet long, 10 or 11 feet. So they're pretty sizable, and they can be several hundred pounds, 400 pounds and 300 pounds. And then the harbor porpoises are much smaller. They're 150 pounds, about 5 feet long.
So the size difference between male and female whales. And
Well, for male, actually in the whales, females are slightly larger than males in the humpback whales as well, for probably other reasons. One reason is that, remember, you're living in a cool environment, and you want to have your baby, if you're female, to have the best chance of survival. Well, the best chance of survival in cold water is to have a larger, baby, a larger young, and be able to withstand the rigors of the environment. So having females grow as big as they can to be able to have larger babies is a good thing. And they think that harbor porpoises are about as small as you could ever get for one of these cetaceans, one of these whales, dolphins, and porpoises. You can't get them any smaller because the baby wouldn't be able to survive in the water.
And how many babies will they have at a time?
Only one ever. They never have twins. And so it's just too hard on them. Think about these harbor porpoises, too. The female, let's say she does have a calf every year. So that means her entire adult life she's lactating and pregnant at the same time, which is very unusual for a large animal. It's very wearing on them. It's a lot of energy. And so, only one baby is as much as they can handle.
You said lactating. Talk a little bit about that process.
Well, so they have, they're mammals. So just like any mammal, they've got milk, and they've got to transfer the energy to that calf. So the calf comes up into the mother, and there's two teats, and the little baby gets underneath there and uses its tongue to sort of suck out milk, and it's very rich milk, much higher fat content than humans, and so they start gaining weight really rapidly and do that for months. Now, harbor porpoises will only feed their babies for, say, 10 months or so, and then they separate, whereas whales or bottlenose dolphins will keep their babies around for years. I mean, these bottlenose dolphins have big brains. There's a lot to teach them, the young, and so they'll keep a calf around for 3 or up to 4 years.
And what about after that time? Do we have any way of knowing whether they recognize their offspring later on?
So that's a really good question about sort of how do families work and
Right.
how do cultures work even in these animals.
Right.
And so the ones with bigger brains, like these bottlenose dolphins, have been studied a little bit, and they do seem to separate. And even though they obviously can recognize each other, in fact, the theory is now that every bottlenose dolphin has an individual name. It's a whistle, and that whistle is recognizable by any other dolphin. So they probably actually know every single individual they're running into. And it's a little harder to know with the harbor porpoises. We haven't done those kinds of detailed studies.
What's the typical geographic range? How far away do they regularly go?
So, the harbor porpoises are in the bay every day. I tend to go out, if you want to look at them from the bridge, which is great, go out at high tide, because that's when they seem to, at the beginning of the ebb tide is when they come back towards the bridge from the bay, and then they'll move to other spots outside, but then they'll be going by you. There are days when I've seen up to more than 100, several days going by me in a 2-hour period. So on an average day, you'll see 20 or 30. But they'll just remain in the area, whereas the bottlenose dolphins are moving up and down our coast. They're cruising in small groups of 6 or 8 or 10 or 12, and they'll come in the bay, then leave a few hours later, and then move to Marin or move to San Francisco. So they're always moving. And the whales are here from April to September, at least the last 2 years. We'll see if they return. I assume they will for anchovy. They've certainly remembered the last 2 years where they were going. But those guys are also seem to move a little bit in and out with tides. And so the whales are here, and they're not pushed in. They can obviously swim against it, but they ride the tide in, and then they tend to leave on the ebb tide.
So, talk about societies. You're talking about a reasonably small regional area. Would that mean that there are different societies for dolphins on on the other side of the Pacific and so
There's
on?
very different, they call them cultures. I mean, they've realized that they have so much intelligence and knowledge that the whale scientists are actually calling them cultures now. And so there, for instance, let's look at something that is well known, like killer whales, which is just really a big dolphin, the biggest, strongest dolphin. Those guys have 3 different kinds of cultures. They've got the culture that only feeds on salmon. That's the ones that you see if you go up to Vancouver or off Seattle. And then there's ones that only feed on mammals. They're the ones that go on along our coast, and they'll take sea lions or elephant seals or whatever. And then there's a third one, which we've only more recently found out, but that don't eat anything except sharks. And so they tend to live offshore. So these cultures, when they come together and they meet, they don't really want to interact. They speak slightly different languages in terms of their clicks and their whistles. And so they're separated. We have the same thing with bottlenose dolphins. Our culture, or ecotype, as the scientists sometimes say, is the one that is coastal. They don't like going into deep water. They won't even go more than a mile offshore. Whereas there's an entire other culture of bottlenose dolphins that live offshore in deep water, and they don't come inshore, and so they don't really meet.
So now, if you have a question, hold up your hand, and John will pass around your mics. We'll keep rolling until I see questions. Talk about the volume of food that it takes to
Quick question
support.
about those cultures, if you don't mind.
Oh,
Yeah, sure,
So
Kathy.
they won't mate then with the other cultures? Well, obviously, if they don't go in the same geographic location, they won't. But if they encounter each other, but they click kind of wrong, is that going to be too
that
much?
is exactly right. That's
So
exactly
you're
what they
losing
think.
some of that diversity, genetic diversity.
Well, that genetic diversity has been built up over literally millions of years, and so it's really, in a way, it can be a good thing to separate. And humans, in one way, do it because we're explorers too. Obviously, the dolphins are explorers too. We've got Miss, an individual that's lived here in the Bay, is now figuring out how to make a living in, Tacoma. And so that exploring gene is present in dolphins. And what we think with the bottlenose dolphins is that it's the females that do all the exploring. Now, why would that be? Well, it's because they're interested in resources. They're interested in food. And they also don't need male attention for 3 or 4 years while they've got a calf. They don't need to be dealing with males. So they'll take off and look for a new area, and what happens is the males will follow the females.
We recognize that trait. Humans. How much volume? How much does a whale eat a year, a day, a week, so on?
Yeah, so whales eat a lot of food, 3,000 pounds a day. So that's one of the things we're thinking about. Are they affecting the bay here? So let's say we had half a dozen whales, which I saw several times this summer feeding in San Francisco Bay at one time. That's a lot of anchovies coming out of the bay. And so what could that do over time? And we're just not sure yet, but that's absolutely something we want to stay on top of and try to see if there's effects. And maybe over time that anchovy population will move or be more offshore, and the whales will follow them. But right now, we're lucky enough to have those anchovies so far inshore, the whales are following them.
Question from the audience.
So I don't think we should be too surprised about some of the cetaceans coming here. People have been coming here for the food for a long time. And
Exactly.
our avian friends have been coming here for a long time. There was even a documentary about it, very popular, by Alfred Hitchcock in the 50s or 60s. And we know that birds have been coming here. And I'm really glad that
You're right.
cetaceans have been finding it. It's worked for me. I've been sailing here for a few decades, and as you've noticed, we have a lot more of these cetaceans. We've had to dodge them in races numerous times, and I've told people about this, and they've asked me, what is it that brings them here? And my short answer is the Clean Air and Water Act of 1973. And that it's taken 45 years since that federal action for our bay to clean up to the point where the food chain can support the large mammals. Is that scientifically supportable? I don't want to
It's
be
not
giving
only
people the...
supportable, but I mentioned that. I said that cleaning up the bay was key to bringing these animals back. And if you clean it, they will come. And it's not only the federal act, but there's the state Clean Water Act law, and folks like Sylvia McLaughlin and other folks that founded Save the Bay. So we just published a paper in the fall about the return of porpoises, and we talk about that exactly in there and say that grassroots movements and then the federal and state law legislation led to cleaning up bays. It was critical for this. You're absolutely right.
So a lot of the people that I know that are now using the bay they were born after those acts. They don't know what it was like before that. And I think that keeping the word out is how important our effects are and how long it takes after making a change for us to see such a positive effect on our local environment is something that we really need to keep in mind then.
Hear, hear.
That's right.
Thank you. You talked about these different cultures. Do males go back to the same woman? What do we have to know about monogamy?
Well, they're not monogamous. So these guys are, they have a scientific word for it, which I can rattle off here. It's polygynandrous. And that means they're not polygamous, but they're polygyn means they have many females and many males, polygynandrous. So the males and females are all mixing it up all the time. So they don't seem to have any kind of a mating bond.
Sort of related subject, predators. Do the whales have any predators? And what about the dolphins and the porpoises?
Yeah, they all everything has predators. There's always somebody that wants to eat somebody else. So along our coast, the whales don't have a lot to worry about once they get pretty big, but there's always killer whales.
Pretty big being over
adult size.
50 feet plus.
Yeah, but the calves are the ones that are subject to predation by killer whales. So that can always happen. We don't see killer whales coming into San Francisco Bay. I'm always amazed that they don't. Like one day some of these guys are going to come in and go, wow, Pier 39, there's all kinds of sea lions here. But they haven't for some reason. And so inside the bay, I showed you the picture with the shark bite marks. So there's obviously some sharks like great whites and others that are able to target some of these porpoises, and it absolutely happens to bottlenose dolphins as well. So remember the deaths that I was talking about of the harbor porpoises from being beaten up by the bottlenose dolphins. That's not predation. That's a different sort of a cultural thing going on there. They don't eat them. It's not about predation.
So what does water temperature have to do with migration?
So water temperature is really interesting because we get to live right at the crux of a really interesting water that's not too hot or not too cold, that allows both the bottlenose dolphins that are warm water animals meet the cold water animals, which are the harbor porpoise. And it's happening right here. We get a nice mix. And so it really what it is, it's not so much the temperature of water that affects the whales coming in. It's just whether there's food here or not. As soon as in the fall, the big krill blooms were happening offshore, that's where the whales went. And there was 100 humpback whales off the Farallones. So that their movements are more not driven by temperature, but just by where food is. Whereas over time, dolphins like it warmer and porpoises like it colder.
Well, give us some metrics. Fahrenheit, what's colder, what's warmer?
Well, I mean, you get down to, when it gets down into the 50s, that's when bottlenose dolphins start to want to stay in warmer water, whereas that's great for harbor porpoises. They don't like 60-degree water. So even that 10-degree swing is important for these guys.
You're saying they'll go south where there's warmer water?
Yeah, that's what we assume will happen. We assume if there is global oceanic warming, that you'll see dolphins move farther north along the coast, and possibly, the harbor porpoises will recede with that warmer water. They'll want to stay further north.
They'll move north. A question? Yes, ma'am.
The latest permission by the government to have offshore drilling along California, how do you think that's going to affect the populations of these cetaceans, and are you
Yeah.
doing anything about it?
Yeah. So, well, we're trying to provide sound science so that the resource managers, the people who are making decisions, have something that they can actually use. For instance, before we came and did the study and published the paper last year on, hey, harbor porpoises are here every day, when you would get a permit to do development in the bay, nobody knew there were porpoises here. Now they do. And we're going to do the same thing with the bottlenose dolphins, same thing with the humpback whales. What I do worry about is I worry about two things, particularly with these guys in the bay. And one is being hit by a ship, because that could happen with a humpback whale, and an oil spill. And an oil spill could affect, all these guys, plus the birds and the fish, everything here. So that is a big concern, is, if there is an accident. Now, in terms of drilling on our coast, the one thing that these guys, because they're very acoustic, and I mentioned this before, they're very sensitive to sound. And so building oil derricks and platforms will affect them during the construction period for sure. They know that from Europe, where they've done studies on this. So yeah, we're trying to get the information to the government so that they can act appropriately around our animals. As you know, the governor's working on that, and a whole raft of people.
Yes, sir.
So you've told us how great comeback the humpbacks have made. And yes, if you spend any time out there, you do get to see them, and it's great. I'm wondering about the other species, particularly the orcas and the sperm whales. How are they doing?
So the sperm whales used to be more common off our coast. They were also captured and brought into the bay by the last whaling station, but their numbers have not rebounded. What it seems to be is that the animals that have a complex social life, like sperm whales do, are much more harmed by hunting than animals like humpback whales, which have a very simple social structure. They're more like grazing cows. So it's like, and they literally evolved from hoofed animals. So you imagine cows or buffalo, for instance, that were reduced by hunting tremendously. If you let them have land and grass and a big area, they will come back. But certain animals like wolves, for instance, if they're more like predatory and have a complex social structure, if you take their numbers way down, it takes them a lot longer to bounce back. So sperm whales have not been doing well off our coast. But orcas, because they're so intelligent, they seem to be holding their own right now, although I worry about them in the long run too.
Well, we want to thank Bill Keener of the Marine Golden Gate Cetacean Research. Anybody who wants to help his foundation can send money to their 501c3, Golden Gate Cetacean Research. Thank you very much, Bill. Been great.
Thank you. You're a great audience. I appreciate being here.
This has been the thank you very much. Meeting's adjourned.
All right. Yeah.